if this were a bog, it would have very acidic soils, and it would have a certain type of plant that were associated with those acidic soils. That would be a bog. And if this were a rich fen, it would have a richer soil, more calcium in the soil, and a whole different suite of plants than you would find in the bog. And this is an intermediate fen. It's not a bog. It's got probably a lot of peat underneath. We don't know how deep it goes. It's probably not sphagnum. It's not as acidic as the bog peats. Intermediate fen will have its own suite of plants, and I don't know what they are. This hill, so this is the Goodrich parcel. There's foundation here, so this is a homestead. And we'll see clear evidence that this land was being. Stubby trees, they're beaver modified. We have beaver in here chewing on these trees, and these are stump sprouting. These are beech trees. So this is a beaver, what I call a beaver modified forest here. So you'll notice all of these sprouts have a chewed off stump from where the beaver cut the beech off.
What did they do with it?
Hauled it down to their pond. There's a pond down here after the cattails. There's a couple other things. A lot of people are stumbling over rocks. Well, you know how those rocks got there? That's the farmer, and that's his rock pile. There's rock piles through here. He was farming this pretty intensively. They've moved all those rocks out. You can imagine how much work that is. So you'll see some rock piles, the big one here. Also, there was a question about the beech dying and all that. Some of these beech are probably dying. Some of them are pretty healthy, and some of them are healed over. So the beech, they get this beech necria, which infects them. Yeah, this is the beech. This is almost all beech in here.
Okay.
There's some maple. The necria is not necessarily going to kill the beech tree. Sometimes they scar over and they look really ugly, but they're fine. They live for many, many more years. Some of them will succumb to it and die, and some of them don't seem to get it. They have pretty smooth bark and they look okay. Now it's open water. It's cattails and then open water where the beavers were active. I have a feeling that these beavers have moved over and created some new little beaver areas over here. I think they may have eaten themselves out of the good stuff here. A couple things to note is we have some very large balsam fir here. This is high enough elevation. It's cool enough up here. They like it. You won't see those, lower down in the valleys. It's balsam fir. That's one here. That's your Christmas tree fir. If you break them, you can smell it. Cattail marsh. It's typically predominantly cattail. Sometimes it's solid cattail. This one has some other vegetation mixed in. And they provide a different habitat for wildlife than the intermediate fen. You're going to find different birds over in this area than you'd find over there, for instance. You'll find muskrat in here. Muskrat and cattail marshes go really well together. Grafton got some land, but the town line was undetermined. So eventually they moved the town line from down there and they moved it up here. But in the meantime, the landowners didn't really have a really good idea of what they owned. And
the doggy.
And the Turner family, which in the 40s and 50s there were 3 sisters, they sold an acre of land to somebody, and they described it as being south of the stone wall, 10 feet, and it was 1 acre off the road. And the people who bought the land had to put a little cabin here. And over the years, the Goodrich family didn't think anything of it. They didn't know what they owned. And then when the Turner lands were being bought by the state, they brought surveyors in, and they spent a fortune. Well, it wasn't the state. It was actually Velco bought. Okay, back up. Velco needed land to mitigate some problems they created by expanding their power lines into wetlands. So they had to buy a whole bunch of wetlands to conserve, to offset the damage that they've done. Now, whether that's fair or not, or good or not, that doesn't matter. That's what they did. So they were conserving the land up here. Eventually, the state ended up acquiring that land that Velco had worked with. And Velco had hired the surveyors, paid a boatload of money to the surveyors. And the surveyors were able to establish some of these boundaries. And then right about the next year, the Goodrich family decided to have their land surveyed. So they had a surveyor come out and survey the land. But that surveyor did not find this 1 acre lot. So it never showed up on that survey. Well, then the state was working with the Sheehan's to buy the Sheehan parcel. And another surveyor was walking around, came up here and said, this doesn't make sense. And they found 4 corner pins, and they went back to the deeds, and it turns out that the Turner family sold an acre of land that they did not own. They did not own this land.
Pretty smooth.
Yeah, their land would have been down where we crossed the line and onto the property on the other side. But through the legal process, the fact that this has been used since the 40s or 50s, and nobody contested the ownership, and it was assumed to be owned by these other people, the Windmill Hill Pinnacle Association was advised to not waste your money trying to take that to court and get that land back, because it's going to cost a fortune, you're going to lose. So we don't own that acre. And that's the trash. Pick the rocks out of the soil, there's rock piles. When you get a moment, you can step over here. There's a pretty large foundation for a house. And this is called Yellow House. This is the Yellow House site. And this would have been used for boarding some of the quarry workers and other people. It also has some reputation of being a house of somewhat ill repute. The folklore. The roads here, we got Walker Road, so that's the one we've been on. It goes into Athens. This is Kidder Hill Road. So Grafton, we're in Grafton. This is a legal town trail here. The town owns this. And you can follow that down to the covered bridge at the bottom of Kidder Hill Road. Old forest and wildlife. So we do some management for wildlife. We've done some wildlife openings and things down towards the Pinnacle in Westminster lands. Here, the state will be monitoring the bear habitat, and they may ask us to cut some trees to open up and release and to create new generation of the desired trees. It won't be logging or timber production driven. It'll be for wildlife. A wire saw where you would have a wire, and you go down through, and you can see the lines in some of the faces where they did that. But yeah, they would have blasted dynamite the overburden, get rid of it, drill holes, dynamite it. All of this rock. When we walked down in, we were walking into a man-made hole. They get rid of all this rock. It's down. You can see it down the hill. Just to get at these veins of soapstone.
How did they know it was down there?
How did they know it was there, Andy?
Yeah, well, we speculate that it had exposed itself on the side, and they could see soapstone popping out. It's the oldest bedrock for quite a ways. It goes back to a billion to 1.5 billion years ago. I think maybe in northern Canada there may be some older rock, but this is like the oldest rock in the country. Now the Green Mountains have some of this ancient bedrock too. The Athens Dome is the furthest deposit of this rock to the east. There's nothing further to the east. We get into New Hampshire, that's really new rock out there in New Hampshire. And you know, because of the movement of the Earth's plates, you know, you have a plate diving under, hitting and diving under another plate. So that happened here, coming from the New Hampshire side. It would have crashed and all that got deposited on top of this old rock. And over millions and millions of years, a lot of that eroded away. You know, we could have had 2-mile-high mountains here, but it's all eroded away, and sort of a dual process. All that rock was bearing down and pushing down on the old rock, so you're eroding and you're releasing the weight, and the old rock can be surfacing too from the release. And this is a dome, and that's what happened here. This rock came up some and was exposed, and on both sides of it is younger rock. This is like 500 million years old in Rockingham and Westminster, and then over across the Grafton-Townsend Road, once again we have the younger rock that was left behind from that tectonic event where they crashed together.
You know, not die, essentially. You know, if you have an oak in a wet situation, then it won't survive if it's wet for a long time. At least, say, a red oak here. But these plants here are adapted to these low oxygen environments, low oxygen for their roots, and so they grow. So this is the winterberry. These are winterberry, and so songbirds will eat these little berries and other small mammals. And we have, here's another plant that's found in somewhat wet situations. This is called gold thread, and let's see. It has these neat little golden roots. If anyone wants to pass it on. Cankersoid.
Did you say there's gold thread?
Yeah, it's called gold thread. It has very gold roots.
Where is it?
It's right over there.
So what did you say again? So you use that wood to treat the canvases? What do you do? Just crack it and then put it on?
Something like that. I'm not sure it works, but supposedly you can.
And then what was the winterberry? You were looking at something up in the air, whereas I know the little winterberry on the ground.
Oh, so this is verticillata, which is called winterberry. As opposed, you're talking about a little herbaceous plant that also has
So we were
red berries.
tromping over toward the other wetland. We were tromping all over it.
Partridgeberry,
So
maybe.
this is a shrub, winterberry, and grows exclusively in wetlands.
Does it taste pepperminty, wintergreen?
I don't know if you can eat it.
Okay.
Yeah, and that other winterberry, yeah, you can eat that. Similar to bunchberry.